Shabbat explained, moon-based or a 7-day cycle? The fourth commandment tells us to remember the Sabbath day, or Shabbat as we say it in Ivrit, in Hebrew, to keep it holy. What day is Shabbat? Some believe we know when Shabbat occurs based on the moon. Is Shabbat moon-based, lunar, or is it based on a continuous cycle of 7 days started from creation? Yes, a continuous cycle that continues right down to this day. We're going to use Torah to find the answers. I'm Moriah ben Avraham. Join me here on Talmidei Yehoah. If you haven't already joined this channel, please do so and click like and subscribe so that you can get all the notifications whenever we put out a new video. So let's get into it. Yes, our aim is to be in a covenant relationship with Yehoah. That's this very covenant he formed with the children of Israel at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. We want to be in that same relationship. We need to return to that same relationship. So if we're going to be in a covenant relationship, we need to understand this important matter. It's the fourth one of what are commonly referred to as the 10 Commandments. And we call them Aseret HaDvarim in Hebrew, the 10 matters. These are the things that matter most. And the fourth one says, remember Yom HaShabbat, to keep it Kodesh, to keep it holy. So, what is the Shabbat? Which day is it? Is it moon-based, or is it a continuous cycle of sevens started from the beginning? One point I constantly make is that correct understanding of the Torah starts with the Aseret HaDvarim. That's the foundation of our covenant relationship with Yehoah. And so we don't understand the covenant based on obscure verses found in other books. We start with that which is written in stone. And from that, we use Sefer HaBrith, the very words of the covenant relationship that we formed, or we're supposed to be in with Yehoah as a people. And out from that, we get to the entire book of Shemoth and the rest of the books that were Al Pi Yehoah, B'Yad Moshe. If you don't get the full understanding of what I'm saying here, please watch the series on the key to understanding the word of Yah. Because in that series, I explain why we need to understand the Torah from the inside out, from the Aseret HaDvarim outward, never from something obscure inward. So we start with Aseret HaDvarim. Let's read what it says there. Remember the Sabbath day. That's how you read it in, let's say, an English translation. Zakor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadesho is in Hebrew. So remember the Sabbath day to keep it Kodesh, to keep it holy. 6 days do you labor and shall you do all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat of Yehoah your Elohim. You shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who was within your gates. For in 6 days Yehoah made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that in them is, or all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore Yehoah blessed the Sabbath day, Yom HaShabbat, and made it Kodesh. Here it reads, and set it apart. But made it Kodesh, made it holy. So this day that Yehoah set apart, made Kodesh, was the seventh in a series of days. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Notice here that it says everything was created in 6 days. For in 6 days Yehoah made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. A lot of people are hung up when they read Breshith first because they wonder, well, is a day 1,000 years? We don't have to worry about that or even question that, because it tells you right here that the same way the seventh day of the week is Shabbat, so in 6 days Yehovah made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. So in 6 days, literal days, Yehovah created everything. There's no 1,000 years for a day in the creation week. None of that applies. This becomes more and more clear if you repeat these words on a daily basis. I make it a habit of saying the Aseret HaDvarim twice a day, morning and evening. I say it in Ivrit. I say it in the original language. Every day I say it. And the more you say it, the more clear the words of Yehovah actually become. And another thing we glean by reading this fourth matter is that in order to really understand it, we can now go back to the creation week, which is described for us in Sefer Bereshith. We'll go to Bereshith and we'll look at what it says there, and we'll get a better, more comprehensive understanding, adding to what the foundation is already in stone, not taking away from it, not detracting from it, but adding to it. Let's go to Bereshith and read the creation. It says, and I'm going to start off by reading it in Ivrit itself. Bereshith bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Bereshith, an interesting word because the letter beit in front of Reshith just means in a. If you wanted to say in the, you would say Bereshith. But the very fact that it says Bereshith just means it means in a beginning. It's not the total beginning of all time. Time existed before the universe, the physical universe, was created. That's something that some people will not accept. But let's just suffice it to say, it says Bereshit, not Bereshit. This is not the beginning, it's a beginning. And it says, Bereshith bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In a beginning, Elohim created, bara Elohim, Elohim created, et hashamayim, he created the heavens, ve'et haaretz, and the earth. That's how that verse should read. Going on to verse 2. And the earth was a formless and desolate emptiness, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of Elohim was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then Elohim said, Vayomer Elohim, Yehi or, let there be light. Wahi or, and there was light. Then verse 4 says, Elohim saw the light that it was good. Okay, Vayar Elohim et haor, kitov, Yavdel Elohim, bein haor uvein hachoshech. So Yehovah separated now between the light and the darkness. He saw the light that it was good, and he made a separation between the light and the darkness. Elohim called the light day, Vayikra Elohim laor yom. With la koshek, the darkness, kara laila. Wahi erev, wahi voker, yom echad. So there's a day has two parts. It has a light part, or, which is called Yom, and it has a dark part, which is called Lila. And Lila starts with the Erev. The beginning of the Erev is the beginning of the dark part of the day. That's the first part of the day. And as the earth rotates, we get Erev, and then we get Boker, which is the beginning of the light part of the day. And that makes for Yom Echad. Yom Echad. This is very important in understanding now exactly what a day is. A day has these two parts. A part that starts with Erev, that's the Lila, and a part that starts with Boker, that's the Yom. And a day, every succeeding day, it says the same two things. So when we get into the second day, at the end of the second day, what does it say? Elohim called the expanse heaven, and there was Wahi Erev, Vahivoker Yom Sheni. There was evening and there was morning the second day. So every day has these two parts. Erev, Voker. And when the next Erev comes, that starts the very next day. Erev, Voker, Erev, Voker. We're going to see that repeated for every single day, the third day. And there was evening and morning, verse 13. Wahi Erev, Wahi Voker, Yom Shlishi. And this repeats for every single day. So let's get to verse 14 now. Because here's a very interesting day where we read in verse 14. Then Elohim said, and I'm going to read this in Ivrit, Vayomer Elohim, Yehi me'oroth birkia hashemayim, lehavdil bein hayom uvein halayla, vehayu leothoth, moadim, yamim vishanim. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and they shall serve as signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. Now we're seeing that on this day, Yahweh is setting up a way of measuring time. There are going to be lights in the heavens that enable us to measure and understand signs, seasons, days, and years. It says in verse 15, and they shall serve as lights in the expanse of the heavens, to give light on the earth, and it was so. Elohim made the two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made also the stars. Now, it's interesting to note here in verse 16 that it's not bara here that's being used, meaning creating ex nihilo. He's creating in the sense of appointing. Waya'as Elohim eth shnei ha'me'oroth hagidolim. In other words, Yehovah now appointed. This word means to do or to make, not creating from nothing, as in the beginning of what we read where it said, and Jehovah created the heavens and the earth. But here we're seeing a word that actually can mean to appoint. Verse 16, so Elohim made, that is appointed, two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars, or appointed them, because they were created in the beginning. When he made the heavens and the earth, all the stars were already created. So he's appointing them or setting them in a specific pattern, order, or let's say motion, so that we have them now for signs and seasons. I'll explain this further in a minute. Elohim placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. Now, let's explain a couple of things here. First of all, the Hebrew word asa means to appoint or to make or do. And so in this case, Yehovah appointed these heavenly signs so that we could use them to measure time. It's analogous to having a watch set. When you buy a watch, let's say an old-fashioned watch, not, let's say, even the ones you buy today, still can be set. But let's just take, for example, an old-fashioned watch that you wind. If you buy a watch that you wind up, the watch is created long before you actually calibrate it and set the hands where they need to be so that the watch actually tells you the correct time of day. So you get the watch, you wind it up, and you calibrate it by positioning the hands on the watch so it matches the time that currently is. And then once the watch sets in motion, from that time forward, as long as it doesn't run out of its power, it will basically tell you accurate time. Well, it's the same thing with the heavenly bodies. They were created, but at this point in time, on the fourth day, Yehovah pretty much calibrated everything so that we could use these heavenly bodies for years and months. And Yahweh used these heavenly signs so that we would now have everything calibrated correctly so that everything would fall in its correct season. Now, what's interesting also is that this verse doesn't explain exactly how we are to use the sun, moon, and stars for signs, seasons, days, or years. Furthermore, the natural reading of these verses don't indicate that from now on, we need to use the moon to determine days. Never says that. Rather, to the contrary, we still see the evening and the morning were the fourth day. That's how this day ends, evening and morning. So just the same way evening and morning were the first day, evening and morning were the second day, when we get to this fourth day, it still says, Wahi erev, wahi voker, yom revi'i. It's still the same. There's no change in how we reckon days. The moon, therefore, is not a sign for days. The sun and the earth's rotation is how we know a day. A day is whenever the earth rotates around. Once around, that's a day. There's an evening, there's a morning, right? There's a dark part, just like we read, which is Lila. And there's a light part, which is a Yom. Those two parts make up a day. That's how days are determined. Has nothing to do with the moon. Seeing, therefore, that we have continuously counted from day 1, 2, 3, now 4, and even day 5 and 6, continue the same pattern, evening, morning, there's another day, then there's simply no reason for us to think that days or weeks have anything to do with the moon. That's not the natural reading. That's not an idea that is emanating from the text. So in other words, if you are a child of Yisrael, one of the children of Yisrael, you're B'nai Yisrael, and you read the Aseret HaDvarim, and it says, 6 days, just like I created the heavens and earth in 6 days and rested the seventh. Every 6 days, you should work. 7th day is Shabbat. There's nothing to do with the moon in that commandment. Same thing, as I read through here, the days mentioned in this chapter have nothing to do with the moon. Now, as we continue on, let's get to the 6th day of the week. Right at the end of this chapter, which should not be the end, because the chapter breaks were added by people who don't fear Yahweh, and they basically trying to deceive you by breaking the chapter unnaturally, when really it should have included all 7 days. But let's ignore that for a moment, and let's just read at the end of the chapter, verse 31, it says, And Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening and there came to be morning the 6th day. So just in the same way that we saw the other days, now we come to the 6th day and it's the same thing. Moving over to chapter 2, which again, the chapter breaks are artificial, doesn't belong there. We move to chapter 2 and we come to the 7th day. Let's see what the Torah says. Chapter 2, verse 1. Kulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'kol tzva'am. So thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and Kol Siva'am is all their hosts, everything in them. Right? Everything was made in those 6 days. So this aligns again with what we read in the Aseret HaDvarim. Verse 2. Ka Elohim bayom hashvi'i milakto asher asa. And Elohim completed in the 7th day milakto asher asa, the work which he had made. Wayish both by Yom Hashvi'i, and he rested on the 7th day, mikol malato asher asa, from all the work which he had made. Verse 3. Varek Elohim et Yom Hashvi'i. So Elohim blessed the 7th day. Kadeshotho, and made it Kodesh. Kadeshotho. Kivo, for in it Shabbat mikol malakto asher bara Elohim la'asot. For in it Elohim rested from all of his work which he created, asher bara Elohim, and which he made. Now this is the crux of the matter. The 7th day, as we just read, the day that was blessed was the 7th in a series that started totally independent of the moon. The seventh day is the seventh day in a cycle of continuous days, evenings and mornings, from day 1 of creation through day 7. The day Yehovah blessed, therefore, occurs every seventh day from creation week. 7 days in Ivrit are referred to as a Shavua. Shavua is compatible with the idea of a week in English, and a week is based on the idea of a Shavua, which from the creation was 7 days. So notice how the word Shavua has at its root, at its heart, this idea of 7. Sheva, Shavua. 7 days in a week. Shiva Yom Bishavua. There's 7 days in a week. There's a connection between the idea of a week and 7 days. Now, where does this idea of lunar Shabbat come from? It comes from people who, first of all, are reading ideas into the text. Because if you read the Torah, there's simply nothing in the Torah that suggests that Shabbat should be connected with the moon or the new moon. It's just not there. What happened, though, is that some people assume, or they read history books, where people assume that religion was invented. Not that it was revealed. Not that Yehovah revealed himself to the first human beings, Adam and Hawa, and that this was literally what happened historically. That there was literally an Adam who kept Shabbat because Yehovah initiated Shabbat the day after Adam was created. And that there has been a human record of Shabbat keeping that has been consistent on earth from time immemorial. That Yehovah has perpetuated Shabbat. There are people who just refuse to believe that Shabbat is perpetual. That Shabbat can go all the way back to the time of creation. But we don't have to really. That's not our job to second guess what Yehovah has commanded or what Yehovah has said. It's here in the Torah, and we should simply follow what's written in stone and what's revealed to us in the pages of the Torah. If that wasn't clear enough, let's also look at what happened when Yehovah rained manna down from heaven. Because not only is Shabbat the fourth matter, Yehovah says it's a test commandment. It's something that tests whether we love him or not. Are we going to do his will or not? So Yehovah's not here trying to trick us. He's not trying to, deceive us and fool us. The wording is as plain as day because it should be obvious. It should be obvious that it's the seventh in a series of 7 days. So let's read in Shemot chapter 16. Then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departure from the land of Mitzrayim. But the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aharon in the wilderness. And the sons of Israel said to them, "If only we had died by Yehovah's hand in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread until we were full. For you have brought us out in this wilderness to kill this entire assembly with hunger." Then Yehovah said to Moshe, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, so that I may test them whether they will walk in my Torah or not." So this Shabbat commandment is a test commandment. Are the children of Israel going to walk in my Torah? That's what Yehovah wants to see. In fact, he intentionally led them into a situation where they wouldn't have food, so he can prove whether or not they would love his Torah. That's what Yehovah wants to see. He still wants to see the same thing in us today. That's the choice we have. I have a whole series that talks about why Yehovah made us physical human beings so that we could choose life. Watch that series. I'll put a link in the description below. Watch that series. It will help you understand why Yehovah does test us. What's he really trying to prove? He wants to see if we love his way of life or not. So it's the same test. So that Yehovah gave now the children of Israel this test with the fourth commandment to see if they would love his Torah or not. Now, is Yehovah trying to trick us? This is not a trick. It's not a trick question on a test. Yehovah's not trying to deceive us. He makes it very clear which day we're supposed to observe, just as he did for the children of Yisrael here in the wilderness. There was no trick to it. So it came about at evening that the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew evaporated, behold, on the surface of the wilderness, there was a fine flake-like thing, fine as the frost of the ground. And when the sons of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, it is the bread which Yehovah has given you to eat. This is what Yehovah has commanded. Everyone gather as much as he will eat. You shall take an omer apiece according to the number of people each of you has in his tent. And so the sons of Israel did so. They gathered and so forth, right? And Moshe said to them, verse 19, no one is to leave any of it until the morning. So this is part of the test. If you are obeying Yehovah, don't keep it overnight. Every day you're going to gather exactly what you need. Verse 20, but they did not listen to Moshe. And some left part of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moshe was angry with them. So notice, whatever this miraculous bread is, it can't be kept overnight on a regular weekday night. But we're going to notice that when you gather it on the sixth day, miraculously, it can be kept overnight. So this is part of the miracle that's taking place here. That's what we're going to see. So, continuing on, verse 21. They gathered it morning by morning, everyone as much as he would eat, but when the sun became hot, it would melt. Now, on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moshe, then he said to them, this is what Yehovah meant. Tomorrow is a Shabbat observance, a holy Shabbat. Yom Kodesh, it's a holy day to Yehovah. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until the morning. So they put it aside until the morning, as Moshe had ordered. And guess what? It says it did not stink, nor was there a maggot in it. Then Moshe said, eat it today, for today is a Shabbat to Yehovah. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it. But on the 7th day, the Shabbat, there will be none. 6 days you gather, 7th day there's none. Notice there's no mention of the moon. Notice that it just says you gather for 6 days, 7th day you don't find any. There's no break here to recalibrate this and start 6 again, because that would mean there would be days, if you were following a lunar Shabbat, there would be weeks where you would actually have to have more than 6 days, or there would be weeks where you would have less than 6 days. There's nothing like that. Yehovah just says, gather it for 6 days, and on the 7th day, there's none. There's nothing about the moon mentioned. This isn't complicated. This is simple. It's plain. It's a basic test. 6 days, you gather it, and the 7th day, you rest. That's the test. Yet it came about on the 7th day that some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. Then Yehovah said to Moshe, how long do you refuse to keep the commandments and my Torah? See, Yehovah has given you the Shabbat. For that reason, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Remain everyone in his place. No one is to leave his place on the 7th day. Verse 30, so the people rested on the 7th day. The 7th day of the week is Shabbat. It's simply that clear. This isn't complicated. Finally, let's look at Shemot chapter 31, where Yehovah makes Shabbat a sign forever between him and the children of Yisrael. It says in verse 12, now Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, now as for you, speak to the sons of Yisrael, saying, you must keep my Sabbaths, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, so that you may know that I am Yehovah who sanctifies you or makes you Kodesh. Therefore you are to keep the Shabbat, for it is holy, Kodesh to you. Everyone who profanes it must be put to death, for whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. For 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day there is a Shabbat of complete rest. Kodesh to Yehovah, holy to Yehovah. Whoever does any work on the Shabbat day must be put to death. So the sons of Yisrael shall keep Shabbat to celebrate the Shabbat throughout their generations as a permanent covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Yisrael forever. Why? Notice it. Verse 17, for in 6 days Yehovah made heaven and earth, but on the 7th day he ceased from labor and was refreshed. Just as it was from the beginning. A cycle, a series of 6 days, and the 7th day is Shabbat. And so Shabbat is a permanent, perpetual 7-day cycle. It has nothing to do with the moon. Shabbat isn't lunar. Shabbat is a 7-day perpetual cycle from creation week right down to our day. If you found this helpful, I encourage you, please hit the like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss any future videos we put out, and share this video with your friends. And if you have questions, if this isn't clear, feel free to write me. Leave comments, write me. I'll leave my email address in the description below this video. I want to hear from you. I want to have dialogue with those who are confused, because I want to help everyone come out of the confusion, to unravel all of the confusion that has been created because we have transgressed against Yehovah and not kept his commandments and have been exiled. And we've been in exile far too long. But the exile can end as we begin to return to Yehovah and keep the covenant, keep the commandments, keep his instructions as revealed al pi Yehovah b'yad Moshe. So join me on this journey and share this video with your friends. And we'll see you next time. Shalom, shalom.